Hi, we've come today to the end of our thoughts about Nehemiah, and we'll do maybe a little bit of a summary about Nehemiah today. Well, how do you cope when you have some large job to do? Some people cope really well. They get all sorts of tough situations, but of course other people fall apart and don't cope with a job. Some of you might be amused about this, but I had a friend some years ago. He was staying on a farm and decided to have a go at shearing a sheep. Well, it took him about an hour, and don't feel too sorry for him about not making any money as a shearer. He was a doctor, and I'm sure making money was not a problem for him. But the poor sheep was so hacked about that they decided the best thing to do was to put him out of his misery and barbecue him. That's the sheep, not my friend. Well, the story of Nehemiah is about a man who had a huge task, and he had all sorts of obstacles when he came to do that task. Yet he methodically and persistently worked through each one of them. Nehemiah is the story of a visionary manager who heard that the walls were broken down in Jerusalem and the people were in disgrace. Not only did he have the vision to see the walls restored, but he had the management skills to actually bring that about. And he leaves us with a great lesson of God's guidance through difficult tasks and the success that God can bring us. The challenge facing Nehemiah was the Jerusalem after the exile remained in this broken, disgraceful and vulnerable state. The walls of the city were broken down. The people were broken-spirited and they were not worshipping God. So the first step in Nehemiah's plan was to restore the walls around the city, rebuild that, then the city would be rebuilt and the people would return to God and function as his people. But there were so many pitfalls and so many obstacles along the way. The first was Nehemiah had to get permission from the king and the assistants of the king. And he prayed for 4 months about that. I can't do it, I can do it. But eventually Nehemiah, the cupbearer to the king, took a deep breath and told the king what his problem was. He asked for help. The king could have killed him even, but Nehemiah was successful. And then what to build when he got there? How will you do it? Well, Nehemiah had a plan. We read in chapter 2, I went to Jerusalem, and after staying there 3 days, I set out during the night with a few men. I had not told anybody what God had put in my heart to do in Jerusalem. So Nehemiah made detailed plans of how he was going to do it. But then the people, they weren't in a mind to build. They tried to build some time before and they'd failed, and they weren't motivated to go and do it all over again. But Nehemiah was able to motivate them. He said, "See the trouble you're in. Jerusalem lies in ruins. Its gates have been burned with fire. Come, let us rebuild the wall of Jerusalem, and we will no longer be in this disgrace." I also told them about the gracious hand of my God upon me and what the king had said. Well, Nehemiah cast a vision and he motivated the people. There was too much work, and so Nehemiah was actually able to delegate that work. The wall was 4 kilometres long and he divided the people into 42 groups. And then of course there was the opposition. But Nehemiah endured and his faith stood there. He stood against the ridicule, against the threats of attack, against even the assassination plans to kill him, against all those lies that were said about him. Nehemiah stood, and the plans to try and get Nehemiah to compromise himself and lose credibility as a leader, he stood against all those as well. And then we find that the wall is built, Nehemiah has been successful, the people meet together and under the direction of Ezra, they begin repenting and they begin worshipping again. And we reach the end of Nehemiah's story in chapter 13. And during chapter 13, Nehemiah prays 4 times, and on each occasion his prayer, just a quick prayer, starts with the same words: "Remember me for this, O my God." And I wondered if Nehemiah was feeling a little bit insecure about his life's work, wondering if it had all been worthwhile. And perhaps he's like many of us. We agonise over whether what we've done is good enough. But I'm sure Nehemiah heard the "well done, good and faithful servant" from Jesus. And I hope that you hear that too, by being a faithful servant to our Lord. Well, we'll start something new tomorrow, thinking about spiritual warfare. But bye for now.